And you're very welcome along to the Football Kickoff. We're with you every Friday morning across the OTB social channels. Make sure to hit subscribe below us on YouTube, and even if you think we're talking pony, hit like. Let's get into it.
The Football Kickoff
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.
Right, you're very welcome along to this week's edition of the Football Kickoff with Sky. Every Friday we're going to talk about the best 5 games on telly this weekend, and I'm delighted to welcome back to the show Simon Cox. Simon, a happy new year to you. How you doing?
Yeah, happy new year, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very good. You're celebrating. You've got a new gig. First team coach at Billericay. I had to look up, Enda had to convince me that the correct pronunciation of Billericay was actually Billericay, and then I realised there's an Injury song about it.
Is there?
Yeah.
Well, your research is better than mine, man. Listen, it's a good job. It's a good first job for me. It allows me to get in and learn and ultimately probably make mistakes, but it's something that I can build on, and hopefully we can start doing well. And it's a good start for me.
And whereabouts in the football pyramid is Billericay?
About seven positions below the Premier League, I think. All
right, well that's you've got to cut your teeth somewhere. It's going to teach you how to deal with players, right?
Well, that's it. And the thing is, it's part-time, so it's 2 nights a week and the game on the weekend. So it allows me to do other things as well, which is great. But like I say, it's a start, and sometimes everybody needs a start, and it doesn't matter where you get it as long as you get one.
Yeah, no, and look, we'll suddenly be looking out for the results. Where in the world is Billericay?
It's Essex, so it's just outside of London. So that it's a great little catchment area, to be fair. So you can try and take a few of the young under 18s, 23s from Premier League clubs who possibly aren't playing. So our main focus this season is to stay in the league, and then hopefully we can build next season.
Well, we wish you all the best with that, and I'm delighted as well that it is only part-time and that you've got time to do this with us as well. And a happy new year to you.
Same to you. We're past the threshold though, if you ask Kenny Cunningham for.
Well, that's like a minute past midnight on New Year's Day. So yeah. I'm actually doing it just to annoy him, and hopefully I will see him on the 31st of January and go, happy. I haven't seen you, Kenny. That's it. It holds. You've been annoying people straight off the bat.
Yeah. So we obviously.
Years. You mean to continue, Enda?
I mean, what else do I do except for annoy people? We do a flash poll before the show every week, and we ask people questions related to what we're going to talk about. And I ask people, who is more likely to finish in the top 4 this season, Tottenham or Arsenal? And there's quite a number of West Ham fans underneath in the comments asking, where's West Ham? Well, the answer to that is they're not playing either of these sides this weekend. So we put Tottenham and Arsenal in there specifically because they are playing each other this weekend.
The question isn't, are they going to? It's who's more likely.
Yes.
All right.
I don't think either of these sides are going to finish in top 4.
You think West Ham are going to do it?
I think West Ham have the capabilities to do it, yeah. I think West Ham are better than both these sides at the minute.
Okay, and is there anybody else who you might like to add into that debate about who might finish 4th?
Well, I mean, you're adding in Manchester United, but I mean, that's just
you're not doing
fanciful
right.
stuff right there.
Simon, who's going to finish 4th?
I agree with Enda. I think West Ham have got the ability, as long as they add a few additions in the window. And it will be interesting to see how they go in the latter stages of the Europa League as well.
It's really interesting that they've actually been able to come back when they've had a bit of a blip, or when there's been a game where you expect them to win and they don't win. They win the next game. And that's been the best sign of their staying power, I think, because maybe they're not good enough to finish 4th, or maybe we didn't think they were good enough, but a lot of the young players are playing really well at the moment.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, the thing is, what happens if they lose Antonio? That's going to be their main thing, and I guess that's one of the things that David Moyes is going to have to look at in the window, is if they lose Antonio for a long period of time, who really do they have? Apart from, I know Bowen and Lanzini are obviously doing really well, but as you saw with Liverpool last night, you take 2 people out of the team and it's a completely different side. So the same with West Ham, I guess.
Yeah, and I suppose that's why they're being linked continuously in the transfer window with another striker. So they have, he's saying competition for Antonio, but it's a potential replacement, or even being able to rest him in some games, because we know he's got porcelain hamstrings.
Yeah, well, I actually think that's a very interesting point, because if you look at the narrative with these sides, the likes of West Ham, for example, what happens if Mikel Antonio gets injured? Arsenal, can Aubameyang or Lacazette be the number 9? Tottenham, Harry Kane, can he get the form going? What are Manchester United going to do if Ronaldo's not scoring? West Ham and across the board in the Premier League this year, there's been a drop off in their reliance of number 9s in terms of the amount of goals. Michael Cox highlighted this on his podcast in Athletic. Most of the best teams in the Premier League right now, their goals are spread out. And if you look at West Ham, Antonio was their top goal scorer with 7 goals. But below that, you've got Gerrard Bowen, who has 5. I think Fornals has 5 as well. Ben Ram is picking up some goals as well. So the reliance of number 9s is dropping, and I think West Ham are capitalising on that, because they're not reliant on Harry Kane. They don't actually, the narrative around them is not, can we get this one person to perform very well? It's all of the team are playing well, and with Mikel Antonio out injured, we still have people who's going to score goals.
All right,
but they don't look the same side though, do they?
No, they're not as good without Antonio.
No, and nor, you know, arguably you'd say with Spurs as well, they don't look the same team when Harry Kane's not in there. So, you know, ultimately it's about, okay, the goals possibly aren't the be all and end all, but it's about the performance level and what he brings to the team at West Ham.
Yeah, you can definitely say that Antonio isn't doing the scoring, and he might not actually be setting up the goals with the final touch, and so therefore the assist, or even the assist to the assist. But the fact that he has to be marked by your best defender means that your best defender is not marking the rest of the players who are suddenly being marked by slightly inferior players, and so they're getting the opportunities.
Yeah, it's like the Michael Murphy effect for Donegal. He may not be scoring the 10 points that are Donegal are scoring, but once you put him onto the field, suddenly 2 to 3 players are, you know, almost attracted to him just out of sheer fear of what he's going to do. And it's the same with Mikel Antonio.
6.5 minutes into the new season, and we've already brought it back to Donegal football, even though we're talking about the Premier League. Enda, this is you. The first 10 minutes have been annoying West Ham fans and bringing us back to Donegal. It's perfect. So that's exactly
the biggest compliment I can give Antonio.
We have started well, fair enough. We've started as we mean to continue. If you want to get involved this morning, you can leave a comment on the YouTube stream. You can always WhatsApp us. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. So it is the football kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sport. The 5 fixtures that we're looking at this weekend, oh, by the way, overwhelmingly Arsenal, 77%, Spurs 22%. So people do not believe in the Antonio Conte revolution just yet. The fixtures we're looking at this weekend: Man City against Chelsea on BT Sport at 12:30 tomorrow. Norwich against Everton 3 o'clock on Premier Sports Saturday afternoon, and Villa against Manchester United at 5:30 under the lights at atmospheric Villa Park on Sky Sports. On Sunday, it's West Ham against Leeds on Sky Sports at 2 o'clock, and Spurs versus Arsenal also on Sky Sports at 4:30. Let's start with Manchester City against Chelsea. We as in football fans really need Chelsea to do us a favour here and duff up Man City and just put a little bit of doubt into them, because at the moment, Simon, they look like an unstoppable juggernaut, and it feels like the league is over. Everybody has started to talk about, well, you know, City are going to win the league, and it's just taken as a matter of fact at this stage. Can Chelsea save us this weekend?
Oh, I hope so, as a Liverpool fan, because listen, if it goes to 13 points, that's going to be very hard for anybody to claw back. So yeah, I agree. I think we need Chelsea to do us a favour. And when you look at recent form between the two sides, you know, I think Thomas Tuchel has it just slightly ahead of Pep, obviously with the Champions League as well. So maybe, you know, we could be in for a little bit of a closer title race come the end of the game.
It felt like we were all set up for a 3-way title race, but then over Christmas we kind of just blinked and it was like, oh, that's what happens when you win every game and you go on the type of streak that City are on. Even within the streak, right, there were some irrepressible performances. They were absolutely sensational. They were banging in goals from everywhere and they looked great. But then the next week they'd scratch out a 1-0 and it was just like, they're the ones that are separating them at the moment, and that's why they have the 10-point lead as it stands, and that's why it feels like it's a done deal.
Yeah, listen, I think ultimately there's such a well-oiled machine, and you're right, it doesn't matter if they're winning 7-0 or whether they're winning 1-0. Ultimately, they're a team that basically get the job done, and this is a big test for them, actually. You know, Chelsea looking, you know, okay, but just not getting the results right now that I guess Thomas Tuchel would want.
What's wrong with Chelsea at the moment?
I think there's a lot of distractions going at Chelsea at the minute, though. You know, you think of like the Rudiger situation. It's tough. You know, I think they need to sort that out. I thought it was strange that they got the Thiago Silva deal done before they got the Rudiger one done. Obviously the Lukaku interview that came out. There's a little bit of sort of unsettled going there at the minute, and they're not really winning the game. So when that sort of happens, the other bits start coming out from outside, and it's not something it necessarily sees sometimes.
Yeah, their form's not that bad. They're drawing games as opposed to losing games, and they're obviously still second in the table. Like if Man City hadn't gone on their crazy run, we might be saying they're doing okay and Tuchel is evolving the form, but obviously you don't get any time at Chelsea.
Yeah, well, I think that comes down to their control of games. And they never really concede goals anyway, and Tuchel, that was the first thing he did, was shore up the defence. But I think the key problem at Chelsea at the minute, and everyone focuses again on Lukaku because obviously that's the main thing to go for, but Reece James was their top goal scorer at the start of the season. He's out injured long term, and Ben Chilwell as well, and that's the attacking options for Chelsea. That's how they get the ball forward, that's how they get the ball into the box and cause loads of issues. So both of them out injured is going to cause problems for them going forward. And even just defensively now with Man City and how fast they move the ball and how good they are out in the wing, it's a completely different scenario coming up against Marcus Alonso, who has absolutely no legs for the last couple of years, and coming up against Trevor Chabala than it is against Reece James and Ben Chilwell.
So you're saying that the injuries have actually cost them in a way that the Man City squad has been able to absorb whatever injuries they've had?
Yeah, I mean, but like Man City could play Bernardo Silva as a centre defensive midfielder and somehow Pep would find a way to win the game. They're a collective team that don't rely on any one individual. It makes them quite boring at times, but I mean, it makes them incredibly effective.
Simon, given that we have the Lukaku issue, right, and it seems to have been an issue that Lukaku brought up because he was unhappy with how he was being used. Should they sell him and move on to somebody else? Like, is that just the type of thing that happens? A player comes, it looks on the face of it, because we kept hearing that this is the final piece of the jigsaw. It hasn't been the explosive success that we anticipated it would be. Do you just move on? Like, there'll be a market for him if you want it.
There will be, but I think ultimately Chelsea bought him back for one reason only, and that was to score goals. And the length of contract that he got he'll stay at Chelsea longer than Thomas Tuchel. But Chelsea are well renowned for letting managers go. So you just never know who's going to probably come in. It might be somebody that Lukaku wants to work with potentially. So listen, he's just got to knuckle down and get on with it. And I think as well as he had COVID and he was injured, and and he hasn't scored as many goals as he possibly would have thought he would have done. So all of a sudden the cracks start to appear. If he starts scoring goals, I think all of a sudden you start forgetting that interview, and all of a sudden he'll start playing with a smile on his face again.
Do you expect that to happen?
I do, yeah, I do. And listen, this is a great game for him because I think he'll fancy his chances up against Diaz, Laporte, or John Stones, no matter who he plays against. This has got counter-attacking football written all over it for Chelsea, and he's the big powerhouse and the focal point for Chelsea. Who they can kick that long ball up to him, and he can get hold of it and bully the two or three centre halves depending on what they play, and maybe get one on the counter for him.
I have one last question, and I realise it's a stupid question, but is there any possibility that Thomas Tuchel is the manager who ends the tradition of sacking that Abramovich has had since he arrived?
I think only if he continues winning things.
Which is really a no, because at some point you're going to lose something.
Well, true, but obviously the gap between them and City's got to get smaller for the Premier League. Obviously, they have to continue doing really well in the Champions League and maybe one domestic cup. If he's in finals and especially for the Premier League, if that gap's between 15 and 20 points, then that's no good. If it's 5 to sort of 8-10 points, then it's a bridge of the gap. So he might see it as a project, but you just got to see the progression for him.
The difference between him and Roberto Di Matteo obviously got the job. It felt a bit like he won a competition and then did actually win a competition, and it felt like this wasn't really ever going to last. But this guy is a genuinely world-class manager, and if you were to give him the opportunity with the young players that they have and the vast academy system that they have, you can see how Tuchel would turn Chelsea into a side that competes for the Champions League every single year and wins the Premier League at least once every 3 years, maybe once every 4 years, which is the level of success that any other club than Man City would appreciate. Are you not Abramovich going, this worked up to now, but now I found my guy. He's my guy. I got to back him.
Yeah, I think you have to, because ultimately you get into that cycle of what's been happening at Chelsea for the last sort of 10, 15 years of sacking managers after, 2 seasons, 18 months or so. So if Thomas Tuchel is the man, then stick by him. And Thomas Tuchel's done this he did it at Dortmund and he did it at PSG, where you leave out your main player after something happens, a bit of ill discipline happens, and he stands by that. He's quite tough in that, and he did it with Lukaku. So the manager ultimately is the main man. It's not the players who dictate what happens; it's the manager. So if he is that guy, then Abramovich has to stick by him, but he has to continue winning things. Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll see. Give us your predictions for this one.
I'm going to go with a boring draw.
Well, I mean, that would at least rein in City a little bit. It would stop their rot, or for everybody else. But I mean, I don't know. I find it very difficult to see how City aren't going to win this game and just go for it. Simon, what's your take?
2-2.
No, that would be a great game. Okay, Norwich against Everton kicks off at 3 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. Adam Ida almost scored a beautiful goal midweek, but then didn't. It's just not, his build-up play, he looks for all the world like a player who's playing at the level he should be playing at. He just needs one to go in off his arse.
Yeah, you wonder though, what's the end game of him playing in these games? Is it that they actually see him as a Premier League striker, or is it that, the January transfer window is now open and they want to maybe get him out on loan and get a move for him? That's my only worry about it. And to be fair, a move away from Norwich wouldn't be the worst idea in the world, because if he goes to a championship club and actually gets some game time and doesn't play for the best championship club, which will be Norwich next year, then he might actually develop and get some first team football and do what the likes of Bazunu was doing with a lower league side and actually play against adults all the time.
Okay, what else about this game are you interested in?
I'm interested in how much of a mess Everton are at the minute, because look, we've spoken about the issues surrounding the club, but they are really backing Rafa Benitez to the hilt here, because when it came to the sporting director, it was Benitez over the sporting director. Now when it came to Benitez over Luca Dean, it was Benitez's choice. He left him out in the cold, even though he's one of the best players at the club, and now he has his own team of players that want to be there apparently under him, and they are just an absolute mess. Since that win against Arsenal, they've lost against Palace, they've lost against Brighton, they've drawn against Chelsea, and they scraped by Hull in the FA Cup last week. So I don't know where Everton go from here if Benitez don't work out. I think they're an absolute shambles at the minute, and if Benitez doesn't work out, they'll be in an even bigger hole than they have been over the last couple of years.
Alright, just some breaking news. Burnley-Leicester has been cancelled tomorrow. That's been postponed because Burnley don't have enough outfield players due to COVID and injuries.
Shouldn't have sold Chris Wood.
But as it stands... As it stands, that game is the only one so far. Bobby Dwyer on YouTube, though, who's a Spurs fan, who's in touch with us a good bit, says, no doubt Arsenal are trying to get the game postponed because of the injury and disciplinary problems they have. Cowards. As for West Ham getting top 4, do me a favour.
I think Bobby's a Tottenham fan.
He is. We'll talk about that in a while. That's our final game that we're going to talk about. What do you make of what Rafa's doing at the moment? He's clearing house, and it's going to be a bit of pain. Things might get worse for Everton before they start to get better.
Yeah, I think Enda's spot on. I think he's basically running it as a dictatorship. You either get on board or you get out. And listen, if it ends up working, then he'll look like the best manager in the world. But as it stands, they are awful. Like seriously, they're bad at the minute. I just don't. They obviously miss Dominic Calvert-Lewin, like the focal point of the team and probably their main source of goals. But just in terms of everything else, like they literally just look all over the place. And it's not. I mean, if you're an Everton fan, you're not going to be too happy about what you're watching either.
Now, stick Al Ghazi in the team. Stick Calvert-Lewin back in the team. He trained this week. I don't know if that means he's actually going to play. He might still be a week away.
I think he was just left out of the team for precaution against Hull, so I think he should play.
Okay, and maybe that's like somebody creating some opportunities, somebody finishing them. Maybe this thing start to go well. And Norwich is a get right game for almost everybody else in the league at the moment, so we'll see. Let's move on. Aston Villa against Manchester United. What did you make of the Coutinho signing? Is there a possibility that he can rekindle his career under Stevie G?
Well, that is the biggest question, I think, on the signing is, can he produce what he did at Liverpool, what he sort of failed to do at Barcelona, but can he do it? A few years older, obviously, but I love it. I think it's a great signing. I think it will boost the players that he's going to be playing around, John McGinn's and your Ollie Watkins and Danny Ings and so on. Imagine having somebody like that walk into your dressing room. That's like, that lifts your game 5-10% straight away. So it's a great signing. It's a big scoop for Gerrard, obviously, with their relationship. So, I'm looking forward to seeing how he gets on.
The other thing is that Villa are definitely backing Gerrard. They've obviously signed Luca Dean, and there's a kid they've signed from Scotland who's a good defender. There could well be 5 players that come in the January transfer window, which is like a lot of business. It's like old school Harry Redknapp at QPR levels of business, and that's a sign that they really believe that they've got their man for the future. Yeah,
they've still got little bits of the Jack Grealish money that are still knocking about, and they've got wealthy owners. I don't see that as being an issue. So there may be two or three more coming in the door, but I think the proper rebuild, the people that Gerrard will definitely want to get over the line, will start coming in the summer. The guys he's got now, obviously depending on how Coutinho does, with the option to buy if he does well enough. Luca Dean's a good signing. So there'll be 2 or 3, 4 that will go out in the summer, and then there'll probably be about 5 or 6, I guess, that will come in the summer as well. So he'll get through to the summer, and then the big rebuild will start happening, I think. Okay,
and the two Villa Man United games that we've seen so far this season, Man United actually completely dominated the game that they lost at Old Trafford, where Villa scored from a corner kick, and other than that, I think missed a penalty. Emi Martinez played brilliantly. Man United dominated possession, should have had a load of goals. The reverse is the complete opposite. The FA Cup game, Villa largely dominated for a good portion until the managerial genius that is Ralf Rangnick moved to the diamond, and the game petered out, and they defended their 1-0 lead. So what's going to happen this week?
I think Villa are going to dominate again. The Villa setup is so, perfect for actually causing United trouble. It's hilarious, because if you look at what United struggle to do, it's actually pass the ball. Just give the ball to their own teammates, and with John McGinn hounding players from that number 10 position.
But Donny van de Beek surely has to start, because he transformed the game. He was a one-man wrecking ball of possession and intelligence.
I'm all for the Donny van de Beek train, but I actually don't think he's as good as people are making out to be. I think he's just getting this reputation because he's not actually playing. But the high wingers, the wing backs that Aston Villa play against, Wan-Bissaka or Luke Shaw, really causing them trouble. Ollie Watkins getting them behind defence. United really slow at the back. So Aston Villa really should, if they could actually score this time from an onside position or without VAR causing them to lose out on goals, I think Aston Villa can really win this game, considering how bad United are playing these days. They are really bad.
What have you made of Ralf Rangnick so far, Simon?
Not a lot, really. In all honesty, he's not really shown why there was so much hype over the master classes that he's been putting on. So I don't know whether his heart's really in the coaching side, and he's just waiting for that end of season to come, and he can move upstairs, and whoever they've got earmarked to come in, they can then start looking at the players and stuff like that. But it's just not worked. It really hasn't, and it's a shame. But there's so much wrong with Manchester United at the minute, which is, I think, less than what Ralf Rangnick probably looked at and thought, I can change some of it, but I can't change all of it, not overnight anyway.
Yeah, when you think of the amount of money that they're spending on players who aren't playing any football, like, and I'm not just talking about Pogba who's injured, but like the massive contract they handed out to Dean Henderson, maybe he'll be their goalkeeper next season. Maybe they'll get some money back from the goalkeeper at the moment.
No,
who's
not
playing
by
quite
the sounds of
well.
Ralf Rangnick anyway. But I think the issue with United is not who they're bringing in; it's who they're not getting rid of, and that's why they have such a bloated side. That's why Ralf Rangnick was almost saying, yes, there are 11 players who are unhappy at the club because there are 11 players that have not played in a long, long time. Look at Phil Jones coming in for his first game in 2 years. Those are the type of things that don't happen at Liverpool or Chelsea or Man City. They get rid of these players because they're not on massively overbloated wages because they handed Paul Pogba a 400 grand a week contract. So therefore,
Everybody
Phil Jones
else,
thinks
yeah.
he's entitled to 200 grand a week and nobody else can afford to pay that. So there's a lot of issues beyond what Ralf Rangnick can do as a manager. As an upper, I don't know what his role is going to be in this consultancy role, but if he can ship off some of the dead wood at the club and bring in some players, they need to bring in a midfielder, because genuinely I've never seen a team at this top level as bad at passing as Manchester United. And I don't think it's actually a Rangnick issue. If you look at what they're doing, it's actually grand if they could pass the ball. If you look at the Aston Villa second half, just go back and look at the highlights at how many times United give away the ball just from a straight pass, from a simple straight pass that was either behind the player or ahead of him or it went straight to an Aston Villa player. It's just simple, basic things that they're doing wrong. And I don't know if that's down to the attitude or just down to the capability of the squad, but they need to fix that.
All right, let's move on. West Ham against Leeds kicks off on Sunday at 2 o'clock on Sky Sport, and then it's Spurs Arsenal. That's our double header on Off the Ball on Sunday as well at 4:30 kickoff. So West Ham against Leeds, in our five-a-side team, which we might not have enough time to talk about today. You put up Rafinha versus Bowen, and unfortunately the Rafinha reputation is huge, right? Which is fair enough because he's been excellent, but Bowen is better than him at the moment, right?
Yeah, I love Gerrard Bowen. I think he's a really underrated player, but I'm also scared that he might become so serially underrated that he becomes overrated.
Yeah.
And I don't know if Gerrard Bowen, if you stick him into a Liverpool side or a Man City side or a Chelsea side, that he makes a step up.
Well, does he, Simon? What do you think? Is he that good?
I think you might want to start putting him in the sort of bracket of Diego Jota. You know, sort of going from a Wolves team to Liverpool team and then hitting the heights. So if he goes into a Liverpool team, I don't know. I think there's definitely a player there.
I think he's well suited to those kind of systems because he's really high intensity, works his balls off every game, and is really dangerous and underrated, I think.
What is he? So maybe that's a stupid question because players are just forwards now as opposed to they are this type of player, and actually if you're really good you can play in multiple positions. But is there a single best position when you look at him, Simon, you go, actually I see this type of player in him? Or can you pick him in any of those roles in a forward 3 or a front 2, maybe not an out number 9, but other than that, is there pretty much anything that he can do?
Yeah, I think he'll play anywhere across the front 3. If he goes into that system, he's not an out and out number 9, and no one should say that either. But he's definitely someone who you've seen Liverpool play Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain in that position. So he's definitely someone who can play there, and it's a fluid system. So it doesn't necessarily mean he stays in the middle. He can play from either side and he can float around, which is great.
Now, Rafinha is also brilliant, right? So we're not actually taking away from how amazing Rafinha is, and the fact that he continuously gets linked with the best clubs in the world would suggest that they are scouting him properly.
Yeah, absolutely, and rightly so. But is he standing out this year more so because of how bad Leeds have been? That's a sort of question that you'd ask, but you can't undoubtedly see that he's got talent. So, listen, if he was to go and play in, one of the top teams, yes, he would add value. But I think the value in terms of signing would be Bowen. I think.
Yeah. Okay. If West Ham are going to be a top 4 team, they've got to win this game.
They do.
There's no. You can't drop 2 points at home against Leeds, who are fighting relegation, and go, yeah, we still make it.
I think they will as well. They completely outclassed them in the cup when they played them last week. So I can't see West Ham struggling with these at all. I think it's an easy enough victory for them. Chalk it off and move on. Okay,
one of the most interesting fixtures of the weekend is obviously Spurs against Arsenal, to see what has happened to the two teams since last they played in the league, but also the fact that they're like really nip and tuck in the table, despite the fact it feels like Spurs have had a crap season.
Yeah, a couple of games in hand, and Spurs are ahead of them. They're only two. Like Spurs have had, and this is where you get sort of false positions in the league sometimes. Is that Arsenal have played decent football at times this year, but Spurs are quote unquote a mess until Conte came in. They're 2 points behind Arsenal with 2 games in hand.
Yeah.
So I mean, like it's a lot closer than people might imagine. Or the table. People always say the table does not lie. The table often lies.
When the games are in hand, it definitely does. So Simon, what do you expect from this game?
Not a lot. I'll be honest. I think it could either be really fiery and really exciting because it's 2 very average teams at the minute, or it can be very dull and very boring. And I feel like Spurs are lacking so much at the minute in terms of impetus going forward. They just don't look exciting going forward. They're obviously going back into like a low medium block and trying to hit on the counter attack. Not really exciting. Arsenal will try and keep possession. Listen, when they're in full flow, like we've seen a few times this year, they're pretty good to watch. But I've got 0-0 written all over this, I think.
Well, Arsenal absolutely killed them the last time, but Spurs had a load of chances before the first goal went in, and then Spurs collapsed just instantly. As soon as the second goal went in, really, that was it. I could see this definitely being 0-0 where both sides cancel each other out, but that hasn't happened that much recently with these two teams, and they're so flaky.
Yeah, it's a fun. I personally have this up as one of the best derbies of the last decade or so. It's always pretty fiery, and somebody's liable to do something stupid, and I think that's generally what Arsenal's problem is this year. And I got a lot of stick from Arsenal fans a couple of weeks ago when Man City beat them, because I was basically making an argument that VAR didn't lose that game for Arsenal. Arsenal did, because Xhaka did something stupid, Gabriel did something stupid, and they only scored 1 goal. So that's where Arsenal need to make that step up. They need to get rid of those players who are liabilities and always have been since they were in the club. And they also need to step up their performances. That'll come with experience because they're a young side. But if you look at Arsenal's underlying metrics, against the smaller sides, they're really good. They're really dominant, and they're quite a good side and clearly well coached. But against the bigger side, the big 6, they've been terrible. They've been all over the place. They can't control the game, and they just get dominated. I don't think that's a big issue against Spurs.
I was going to say,
Spurs don't have a midfield, so they can't control the game in the first place.
Bigger teams. What are you saying there, Enda?
I actually think this is going to be a really exciting game, because I think Spurs have such a lack of control in midfield
because of the mistakes.
Because they don't have a midfield. They've got Højbjerg and Skip, who are really good break up, control, pass the ball 5 yards and move on, but they don't have a Jorginho or a Bernardo Silva or a Kevin De Bruyne.
No,
they don't have somebody who can control the midfield and actually make that killer pass. So I think this game's going to be wide open.
All right, okay. That is this week's episode of the Football Kickoff with Sky. We're going to do the quick five-a-side. Ederson versus Mendy. This wasn't really it. This is Ederson's best goalkeeper in the world.
It was closer.
Gibson versus Keane.
Keane won that.
Keane got in. Coutinho versus Fernandes. It's Fernandes for now, right? Definitely. But then Fernandes' form's not that good.
Better player though.
Is he?
Coutinho, depending on which Coutinho you've got.
Yeah. Give me the Coutinho when he was at Liverpool up against Bruno now. Who's winning that?
Coutinho all day of the week.
But I mean, that's a false comparison.
Well, no, it's not. It's just
Coutinho of 3 years ago. Coutinho up against
Coutinho at Bayern, he was pretty good.
It's a completely pointless argument.
Coutinho, well, it's not, because it's actually the same player. Right, the Football Kickoff with Sky. All the football you love in one place across Sky Sports, BT Sport, and Premier Sport. We'll see you next week at 10:30. Until then, enjoy the football. We'll see you then. Take care.
The Football Kickoff
with Sky. Watch every single live Premier League game on Sky Sports, BT Sport and Premier Sports.